Well, hey, I'm going to be talking about a game that I just made for the GMTK Game Jam 2024. And this is it. It's Patient Zero. This is the first time that I've done a game jam. I'm really excited to have basically put this together in 4 days. It's basically a game where you control this huge swarm of robots and you just push it with the mouse and you're taking over from these viruses that are infecting this human body. So you just push them around. There's a whole bunch of physics happening. They're bouncing off walls. They're swarming in and attracting towards each other. You can see I can push them into these clusters and they sort of stick together a little bit. They form these groups. So you can basically keep them in clumps and use them to spread throughout the body and take over from these viruses. It's basically an RTS, which I think is really cool to have approached the design of the jam, which the theme was built to scale. You start off with just one little bot and you grow into this whole swarm, to basically have organically stumbled into a real-time strategy game where, you know, the strategy here is you need to take map control. The viruses keep spreading anywhere that they can attack these red blood cells. So you need to defend the red blood cells. You need to cover the important pinch points, such as the entrance to the arms. It's actually a pretty fun game to play. I've played it a lot since I finished it. Unfortunately, the version that I submitted for the jam had horrible performance issues because you can see it's kind of a complicated set of constraints here with all the bots pulling on each other. And I've since fixed that and uploaded a new version to the itch page after the jam. So I just want to talk about some of the process that I went through. I made this game in Godot, so you can look at the source code. It's put up on GitHub. The first thing I'm going to do is show you some of the versions of the game over those 4 days. So the first day was just this really simple. I just had the idea to get these bots to attract each other. I drew this little picture of a bot. I added. You can see that they are pulling on each other, and I can push them with a mouse and they kind of fly apart. And that was basically all I got done for the first day. There was a little bit of the first day I was like, is that really all that I've done? My plan in my head was that the theme is built to scale. The plan in my head was that I was going to make many levels, like probably 3 or 4 levels, where each level you would have more and more and more bots, and it would scale up over the course of the game. And the first level was going to be this human body level. And as you'll see, I didn't quite get around to making more than 1 level, but I think that that was for the best. I think for a game jam, you want people to be able to play the whole thing in 5 to 10 minutes. So let's move on to the second day, where I had made quite a lot of progress. I was able to build out the whole human body. These bots are really aggressive. They just kind of swarm around each other. But this is what I had done after 1 day. You can hear it's got the music. It's got the combat. It doesn't have zooming. It's just got this one cluster of bots that just flies around and attacks any virus that they see. So I had the basic gameplay loop, and I think that this second day was really a huge amount of progress. All these assets, by the way, I got from various places online. They're all Creative Commons licensed. The human body image in the background is from a biology textbook. But there's a problem that I started noticing once I had the game sort of together in this form, which is that once you have bots flying away from each other, you can see they still attract each other very, very strongly. It's much stronger here than in the final game. Once you have even one bot that escapes and flies away, it's worse if it goes vertical. The camera zooms out to capture all the bots that are wherever the bots are in the level. And if the bots get too separated, there's just nothing you can do about being able to see anything. Like, there's no way to zoom in or out. And this is a problem that I hadn't really considered when I was designing the game. I just said, well, we'll make the camera follow all the bots, right? But at this point, they're just pixels. There's nothing I can really do here to bring them back together because I can't even see them. And I'll go on to the next day now. I didn't solve this problem for a number of days. I just sat around, scratching my head thinking about how I was going to solve this problem. The third day was basically a very small amount of work, but we have the red blood cells now. We have the virus like spreading really quickly. You can see we've got a bit of basic UI now, so we can see the number of bots and the number of viruses. and we've got just a little bit more of a game. This was the midpoint of the last day, started to get some art, some horrible art in there. At the midpoint of the last day, I finally solved that camera issue, and here we have almost a complete game, except that it's missing any sense of beginning and ending and purpose. This is about 6 hours before the end of the jam, so I was getting kind of desperate by this point, but you can see the solution to the camera problem is to basically have the camera dynamically track groups of bots. So what it does is, I can now zoom in and out with the mouse wheel. And if I pan the mouse over one or two bots, what it will do is it will just basically figure out all the friends, all of the nearby bots to the bot that I touched, and it will draw a box around those. And if I want to move to another cluster somewhere else on the map, so if the bots separate out into, say, two separate clusters, you can see that now it's just focusing on these two bots over here. And if I zoom out, I can just drag over the other bots, and now the camera will move over there. I think this is a really nice solution. I thought about having maybe just an RTS camera, like just use WASD to pan the camera around. But then I think the user would spend a lot of their brain power just trying to control the camera, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted the camera to be very dynamic and intuitive, and just sort of automatically focus on the important action. So I think this is a good compromise. Letting the user manually zoom in and out is a very simple, intuitive action. I just want to see a bit more, or I want to see a wider view of the battlefield. But having the camera be something where it's following just the bots that you're caring about right at this moment is cool. And this was really coming down to the wire. This build was from about 9 p.m. on the last day, and it was due at 3 a.m. And I basically worked just full on for 6 hours. And I'll show you what I managed to add in those 6 hours. I think it was it really quite brought everything together in the last 6 hours. First of all, I changed the graphics. I added a much stronger glow behind the bot, and this red background, I made it much darker, giving the whole game a much nicer feeling. And the bots having this blue glow means that you have this nice red, green, and blue color scheme for the three factions of the game, essentially. I also added a tutorial to start off, and you just start with the one bot, so we actually have this sense of building up a sense of scale. You start with one bot, you have a tutorial on screen, and what I was basically able to do in that last 6 hours was code up a bunch of states that you can progress through as the game begins. So you see how it says seek and destroy, and that's basically saying you're going to get a free pass at the start of the game, because if you just have one bot at the start, it's just going to die right away. So in this opening stage of the game, viruses can't actually attack you. You just touch a virus and you get a new bot. And this continues until you have 20 bots. And then it goes into the main phase of the game, where there's a big battle happening between the bots and the viruses. I'm not sure if I'll actually show that happening, but basically there we go. The viruses learn to fight back. I guess I only had, the threshold was 10 in this version. And at this stage, now we have the war going on, and the viruses have already mutated up to a very large number, so we've got a big fight on our hands. Adding these states makes the game a lot more exciting to play through, and I also added an ending, which you'll see if you play the game, what happens if you manage to defeat all of the viruses. I added game over states, and the most important thing that I added right at the end there is this beeping sound that you can hear. And you can hear it accelerating. The beeping sound actually, can you hear it? It gets faster and faster the fewer red blood cells there are, which is patient health. And I think it adds so much tension to the game, just hearing the health of the patient deteriorating until finally it flatlines if they all die. I'm not sure if that's going to happen right here. But that audio design just really made the game feel special to me. So I'm very happy that I was able to get that in. I couldn't get any other sound effects in the game. There you go, the flatline. I couldn't get any other sound effects, didn't have time, but I managed to get that in, and I think it really impacts on the feeling of the game. So this is the version of the game that was submitted to the Jam, and then I have subsequently made revisions, just improving the feel of things and fixing the performance. So I'm pretty happy with how this went in the end. I have some tips for Godot. One is to add these exports. What it does is it allows you to define in code certain variables that you can then access on the side here, and you can just change them. You can be like, oh, let's just have 50 viruses to start with instead of 11. You could just play with those numbers really easily. You can put colors, you can put all sorts of things. It makes it really easy to play with the parameters of your game without having to go into the code and edit the file. And the most impactful exports that I added was this debug info. It may seem like a bit of overkill to add debug tools to your game when you're trying to rush to get it into a game jam, but it was so useful to have these buttons here, to have a debug info boolean, a single checkbox that I can check, which makes the game show all of this extra info at the start. It just means that you don't have to debug things by putting prints in all the time and adding and removing prints and making sure that your game isn't showing debug info to the user when you actually upload it. You've just got everything controlled by this one checkbox, and then you can go in when it's time to release the game, just set it back to the default, and it's all gone. Just add ways to skip ahead past the opening stages of your game so that you can test what matters. Here I have the debug start dropdown, where I can just choose from the 5 major stages of the game. And I can quickly just go like, give me 20 bots to start with, not one. Let me into that stage where you're farming the virus, go. Or I want to test the performance. So give me 150 bots. I can just type that in, start the game, and then we can see how the performance goes, this is the performance optimized version. I'm very happy that I can have 150 bots all swarming around each other here. If I was running this on the Game Jam version, it would just be like 1 frame per second. But that's the sort of thing that just helps you not only rapidly test things, but also make sure that you don't accidentally submit a version that has debug stuff happening, because I can just quickly go in here and go click, 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 get all the debug things turned off, and the game's back to its pristine starting state. So it may seem like overkill to add that sort of thing for a game jam, but really saves time, even in the very short space of the 4 days. And just wanted to lastly have a look at the results. So there was, I submitted to the Game Jam. There was rounds of voting. I had 19 people rated it, which is about the average, and ended up placing 2,240th out of 7,000. That's a big jam. There's a lot of people submitted games to this. It's sort of hard to not be disappointed when you see a number like you placed 2,000th. It is in the top 30 of the jam, so I think that's a pretty good result. I think I made something pretty fun to play. Like, I have been replaying it over and over a bunch of times. Obviously, the version that was submitted had major performance issues and a lot of people couldn't finish it. So I'm happy to have just managed to get out a version that does play pretty well all the way to the end. So I'm looking forward to the next one. The next game making thing that comes my way. And I'll see you when that happens. Take care.